in
So
IQ
Harvard
points.
Medical School. So again, I want to bring some credibility into this. So Harvard Medical School conducted some studies and has demonstratively proven that fluoride reduces the IQ in children.
By 3.7 points.
Why? Just on that premise alone, why would anybody want to put fluoride into water? Hi everyone, welcome to Nadine One-on-One with Dr. Robert Dixon. And we're going to call him Dr. Bob because that's how he likes to be addressed, and much of his material, which you will find online, is referenced as Dr. Bob. And we're going to talk a little bit about the fluoride debate, which is an amazingly, I guess, I don't even know the right word, but it's one of those topics that hasn't really gotten the attention it needed because it seems to be such a almost innocence around fluoride because, well, fluoride's just found in nature and it's been called a mineral or a vitamin, and we're going to get into the weeds today, but I love the fluoride debate because I love the history of it, and the history is one of secrecy and the CIA and Pentagon and corporate strategy, you know, and it's filled with just such a push to hide evidence, and you know, it's one of those ones where when you follow the money, you really see kind of a side of fluoride you might not knew existed.
Most certainly.
So, Dr. Bob, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thanks for being here in your lovely space. Much appreciate you doing this because it's. I know there's a lot of things happening out in the world right now that are important, but this one's important too because people are trying to tell us that it's correct and proper to poison our water, to put one of the most toxic elements on the planet in our public water and take as much as you want. And that is just not good public health policy.
No, well, we're seeing lots of not so good public health policy lately, so
we'll try to stay out of those weeds.
We're on target. So obviously the first thing we want to do is establish some credibility. So why don't you just give us a little bit of your background and tell us what you've been doing and, you know, how you've been trained, and what makes you a credible source of information on this topic?
Fine. I went to medical school at a later age. I'm trained in a number of things, air traffic control and giftware cells and all sorts of things, childcare. But I went into paramedics when I was 30 years old and then to medical school when I was 33 at University of Calgary. Also have a background in physical education, a degree in phys ed as well, which is now called kinesiology.
I have one of those, so I can,
cool.
Yes.
Congratulations. It's a good degree. It opened up a lot of doors for me. So at 33, I went back to medical school. So they had a little bit more difficult time molding me like they do some of the younger docs that come out. And but they never touched on fluoridation all through medical school or my residency training. And I didn't actually learn about, I'm a family doctor, so I've been working in the community since 1990. And I never learned about fluoridation until 1998, really. And we were fluoridated at that time because Calgary has gone through 6 plebiscites. 4 of them were prior to 1989, and they all stopped fluoridation. They rejected it. And then there's a lot of money that came in 1988-89 through a good friend of mine who was the public health officer at that time. And money came from the Alberta government, from Alberta Health, and also from the Calgary Health Region. So they had hundreds of thousands of dollars to put some very glitzy information out there. And I read that in 1998 when we had our last referendum, and I actually voted for fluoridation. It had been passed in 1989, and then it took them 2 years to build the infrastructure for fluoride because it's highly toxic, so they need some very specialized infrastructure and hazmat suits and whatever to install it. And
okay, so hazmat suits to deal with something that we are going to put in our public water system.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, let that sink in. And so anyway, in 1991, they started fluoridating Calgary's water. My son was born in 93. He was impacted by that. During the 1990s, started in 91, there was a lot of grassroots activity against fluoride. and a lot of people pressuring, but many from the grassroots with very little money, so just a few pamphlets to hand out and whatever. And so that culminated in 1998 in an expert panel being struck by the City of Calgary Council. But who did they choose for the expert panel? Well, they didn't choose anti-fluoridationists. They chose the avid pro-fluoridationists at the University of Calgary. So if I was to choose an expert panel now, and I've been doing this for 22 years, fluoride would be gone off this planet. Elon Musk would take it all to Mars and keep it there. And him too, hopefully. But you ask the experts from the University of Calgary who are rabid pro-fluoridationists, should we have fluoride? Absolutely. Expert panel says we have to have this stuff in. We might take it down from 1 part per million to 0.8, but we definitely need it because it's safe and effective. So that's the information I read, and I voted for it in 1998. And then in 1999, people came to me, friends and colleagues, and said, why did you vote for water fluoridation? This is not good. And I went, well, because they told me it would. I've read all kinds of literature from the Calgary Health Region and Alberta Health, and they said it was wonderful, safe, and effective. And I can't research everything that comes across my desk, so I voted for it. And they said, well, why don't you look at the information? And I did, and I was abhorred by what I saw. I was shocked. And so I went, what can I do about this? So I took it to my good friend and mentor, Dr. James Beck, who wrote the book, The Case Against Fluoride, along with 2 colleagues from PhDs from the United States and England. And I said, Jim, could you look at this literature? And he said, sure, I'm fine. But at that time, he didn't know anything about fluoride neither. And a couple of weeks later, I went back to him and he went, oh, this is awful. We got to do something about this. And so he was retired at that time as a PhD MD, one of my mentors at the University of Calgary Medical School when I was there. And he said, well, I got the time and let's do something. And he said, with this information and this literature, it should take us a few months. I went, okay, Jim, you're on. So we started tackling city councilors, presidents of the university, presidents of the medical school, medical officers, dental officers of health, giving them free books and whatever. And it took us 12 years, along with the grassroots movement as well. We can't take full responsibility of that, but Jim was the main leader, scientific guy, PhD, MD, and we finally got city council to rescind fluoridation, turn off the taps, one of the easiest chemicals to get rid of in the world. Don't want water fluoridation, think it does harm to all parts of the body? Take the tap and go, and turn it off. It's gone in 2 days. Try doing that with Monsanto's Roundup. Well, 2 decades later, you might be starting to make a difference. 2 days, you can get rid of fluoridation. Or in one little swipe of the pen at City Council on the bottom of the motion sheet, no, we don't want it. Gone, done.
Okay, so let's tackle that because for a lot of people, again, fluoride has been touted as completely harmless.
Oh, safe and effective, safe
and effective.
Hear it every day.
But what we're seeing safe and effective every day in so many ways now. It's become rather comical.
An overused mantra.
It is, because safe and effective, and yet, if you look at a little tube of toothpaste, it says, if ingested, more than a pea-size quantity, to call the poison control center.
Right here. Can you zoom in on it? Right there.
Yeah.
If more than used for brushing is accidentally swallowed, get medical help or contact a poison control center right away.
Yeah, so
this is mainly for kids under 6. So if your 5-year-old swallows something bigger than the pea-sized amount they're supposed to be using, you're supposed to call Poison Control Center. But if you put it in this glass and say drink 5 of these, you're getting 5 times the amount that they got from that oversized piece of fluoridated toothpaste.
And I think that's where we really want to. So help me understand what exactly is fluoride, because this is, I think, where the misconception starts. Is people go, oh, fluoride occurs naturally in the environment all the time. How many times have we heard that? Mm-hmm. It's in the water supply. It's in the air. It's a natural element.
So it's one of the halides that's in virtually all the Earth's crust in particular. And what is in the groundwater in almost all of the world is natural calcium fluoride. We talk about it in our water fluoridation basics here, natural calcium fluoride. But it's found in small amounts in almost all the world. So it'd be between less than 0.1 part per million to, like in Calgary, we have 0.2 parts in our Bow, generally speaking, Bow River, and 0.3 parts per million in the Elbow system, 0.3 parts. And in some places, like in India and China, they have 5, 10 parts per million. They have skeletal fluorosis and brain damage and just all sorts of problems with gut and thyroids and kidneys. So
Okay,
they definitely have to take it out.
Yeah, so it is a natural element.
It is natural and it's occurring in almost all our groundwater. But again, the calcium fluoride is a little bit different than, as you know, the stuff that we put in our public waters 95% of the time in North America, which is scrubbed out of the fertilizer waste stacks in Florida and now in China, because Florida can't supply all of it. The United States, it's 74% fluoridated. So it comes from either Florida or China, comes out of their scrubber waste stacks because they're not allowed to put it in the air, in the rivers, lakes, streams, or oceans, or in the ground. So they've got to pay a lot of money to dispose of it properly in waste disposal plants. But no, they get to put it into big tanker trucks, put big, dangerous signs and whatever, toxic signs on the side, bring it right to, well, not Calgary now, thankfully, for 10 years, but to Edmonton. And they dump it after Edmonton is clean and cleansed their water with 5 different processes. Just before it comes to Edmontonians' homes, they inject hydrofluorosilicic acid from the fertilizer industry.
Mm-hmm. So there's a difference between calcium fluoride, which we find in nature in very, 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 very small amounts, and what they are putting in drinking water, which is the
hydrofluorosilicic acid. And it goes directly in as the fluoride ion and it's consumed right away. And you cannot take it out with Britas. You cannot take it out with most of the fridge type water filters. You can take it out with some of the more like Berkey's for their $500 or $800. And you can take it out with distillation, which I don't recommend. And it will be taken out mostly with the reverse osmosis system. But that is for your whole home. And then you're not showering or bathing in fluoride, and you're not using it for cooking, and you're not using it for drinking. So that's the best system. But how many people can afford a $5,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 reverse osmosis system?
Yeah.
I don't have one.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing with this then is, we're being told this is completely safe and it should be in drinking water. And I sit back and I go, okay, well, what is it? So we've just established that what occurs in nature is not what's being added to our drinking water, for one. So this, when I read WebMD and it talks about dental health and fluoride treatment, fluoride is a mineral, which is false to begin with, that occurs naturally in many foods and water. That's not accurate. That's not 100% truthful. And it's misleading.
It's misleading
because they lead us to believe that this is what they're adding to our water supply, not what's coming out of chemical bywaste, which is a biohazard and would have had the corporations that produce this are no longer allowed to add, put it into the water or the environment, the air, and they would have to pay to have this disposed of.
Huge amount of money. So the differential they make in Florida, even with the fertilizer industry, is about $250 million a year. So instead of paying several thousands a ton to dispose of it, they get paid, say, maybe $1,000 a ton to put it in our city waters. It's a real coup for them financially.
Well, it sounds like a real human experiment, and people are misinformed. This is not informed consent. And one of the things that I studied fluoride a little bit, many years ago, and a great book, if anybody's interested in truly understanding the fluoride debate.
Fabulous book.
Is The Fluoride Deception by Christopher Bryson. And this is fluoride really came about as a part of the war economy and corporate
The Manhattan Project.
The Manhattan Project. And we're not going to get into that because it's quite detailed. And
well, it's a collusion of that. So the Manhattan Project with the U.S. military to make the nuclear bomb, they needed fluoride, fluorine gas. And the aluminum industry that had started in the 1930s and needed a place to dispose of their toxic waste that were harming plants and animals and people. And then after that, then the fertilizer industry that needed a place to dispose of their waste. So it was a collusion of those three major groups and players that brought fluoride into. So it was a collusion of the major players there, those major three groups, starting in the 1930s, the 1940s, and then they did some bogus studies in the late 1940s and early 50s. And are you familiar with Edward Bernays, Bernays?
The father of spin.
The master propagandist of the 20th century. He actually wrote the book Propaganda in 1929.
He did,
and he was hired by the cigarette companies to convince women, particularly pregnant women, that smoking during their pregnancy would be good for them. It would calm them down and make their lives much better. And of course, they have the pictures of all the doctors smoking in their office and supporting Camels or Winstons or whatever, and Marlboros. And he was the mastermind behind that, Edward Bernays, the book Propaganda. And so he did such a good job with the cigarette companies that they decided that they should hire him for the fertilizer industry as well. And after he came out with a master campaign that went to about 40 or 50,000 docs and dentists in the United States, primarily, he convinced them that fluoride is good for kids. And that was the start of the movement. And that's been the mantra ever since, fluoride is good for kids. And he said afterwards, Edward Bernays said afterwards, convincing doctors and dentists that fluoride was good for kids is the easiest thing he's ever done in his professional career.
Yeah, because of course, who wants to harm children, right?
Yeah.
If there's something we can
We
do
want to help the poor
better
children.
then
And they still pull on our heartstrings to this very day.
yeah.
The Calgary group that supports water fluoridation, that's their main mantra, safe and effective, and it helps the poor kids.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that this book in particular really highlights is the some of the corporate interests that have really hijacked the science, and
He goes into that so well. It's such a well-researched book.
It is a very well-researched book. So because so many people go, oh, we're conspiracy theorists, right?
Mm-hmm.
This can't be true, and the government would never do that.
We're conspiracy documenters. It's documented there amongst other places.
Yeah, I have a question these days. What happens when a conspiracy theorist is actually proven to be true?
Actually real.
What do you call them?
Yeah, called fact.
Yeah, yeah. What do you, right? And so I want to talk then a little bit about, you've got Dr. Bob's top 10 reasons not to fluoridate.
Yes, we do.
So we've established what fluoride is, but it's supposedly really great for your teeth.
Okay, there's thousands of studies out on both sides, pro and anti.
Okay, hold on. So thousands of studies on both sides.
Both sides.
So let's clarify that.
All
because
not very good studies, I might add, except for the newest ones coming out on the anti-fluoride side about brain injury by top Canadian scientists, top Canadian doctors and researchers, top American researchers, and top Mexican researchers as well. And they're coming out finally, after 75 years, proving that it's neurotoxic and that it damages kids' brains in particular, drops IQ anywhere from 3 to 9 points. 3 is significant, 9 is hugely significant, causes a huge increase in ADHD, which we do not need in this day and time. And it affects virtually every bone, every cell, every organ, every system in the body adversely. And
it's something that the body actually doesn't even need.
There is not a single need for fluoride on our planet.
So the body doesn't have a single requirement.
Except to kill rats.
Yes,
it's a really good rat poison.
It is a very good rat poison.
Yeah.
So, and again, this is where this book actually documents a significant number of studies, even prior to this, where people who were working in the war economy on the bomb and the project actually were having some huge health issues. Mm-hmm. And DuPont and a number of others got into some major legal battles. And there is some great science out there with this. And this is like the 1930s, 1940s. So it's not like any of this is really new.
No.
And it was a lot of these corporations that developed this corporate strategy of one, they said secrecy. And when they couldn't no longer keep it secret or suppress it, it was the corporate strategy of putting a campaign, this spin, this propaganda, and owning the science is what they said.
Yeah, owning the science. And what do they do with the science? Well, if it's in their favor, they put it out. If it's most that's not in their favor, it's under the table in locked drawers.
Which,
they fund it.
You know, if you didn't produce a result that they wanted, the science was not going to get any more funding.
Buried science.
Right.
And some people that wouldn't bury it, fired. Their careers destroyed, ruined.
Yes.
Phyllis Mullenix being one.
Yes.
Actually, just as a bit of a break in the trend of thought here, do you know what the best movie is that's out now on this whole issue or similar issues? Blackwater. Have you seen Blackwater from 2019? Not. Please get that out and put it out to your folks here that are listening. Blackwater or Blackwaters. It's one of the two. There's two that are that similar name, but it's 2019. It's about the lawyer that fought almost single-handedly and almost ruined his entire life and his family's life by fighting DuPont in the United States about PFOAs and fluoride. Yes. It is so good. Excellent movie.
Yeah.
Saddening, powerful, definitely a must watch.
Mm-hmm. So back to Dr. Bob's top 10 reasons not to fluoridate. So it says here, major court case underway in the federal courts in California, I believe, with the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, about adding a toxic waste to the water. And I think that one is kind of ongoing. But
that has been ongoing for 5 years now. It started in 2016 when Fluoride Action Network and Mums Against Fluoride and there's an environmental network and numbers of other groups took the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency in the States, that are supposed to be protecting us and keeping chemicals and hazards out of our water, amongst other things. They've not been doing that for 70 years, so we took them to court. And that court case started in 2016. Up until recently, there's been 6 times, maybe it's 7 now, but the most recent one, that the EPA has tried to throw it out of court with just inconsequential little minute things. And the judges went, no, this has substance, we're keeping going. So they started in June of last year, and the next court sitting is next week, or maybe even this week. I guess maybe even today or tomorrow. But anyway, and then we expect to have some sort of decision come out within this year, maybe this summer, on whether the EPA can actually keep the blinders on and force or let people put one of the most toxic substances on the planet in public water.
So the reason I bring that up is just because people always say, well, the science is settled, right? The science is
so
science.
Far from being settled. That is such a misnomer. We have the science on our side now. The science of neurotoxicity, ADHD, bone damage, thyroid damage, that's on our side now. We have much more powerful science than the pro-fluoridation side.
Yeah. One of the interesting facts that I noted with fluoride when I went through the research that I did a number of years ago was the reduction in the IQ. So there was 2 studies that came out of China actually some time ago that noted that in villages that fluoridated, the IQ levels of the villagers itself was significantly lower. And there was, I would call it a very devious kind of study that was done as well on prisoners in the U.S. And it was noted that fluoride added to the water made inmates more docile.
Yeah, a little more complacent.
Right? So
it's not going to drop IQ in adults, but it does in kids. Those 2 studies that you mentioned from China were 2 of the more popular ones. There's actually about 30 studies, 27 I think were in the meta-analysis that was done by Harvard Medical School in 2012, and they showed a 3.4 drop in IQ.
So Harvard Medical School. So again, I want to bring some credibility into this. So Harvard Medical School conducted some studies and has demonstrably proven that fluoride reduces the IQ in children.
By 3.7 points.
Why? Just on that premise alone, why would anybody want to put fluoride into water?
The pro-fluorinationists are very good at picking apart those studies and saying, well, that part wasn't right, and this could have been a compounder here. No, we can't do that. You can't use that study. We can't trust it. So every study that comes out, they do that with, even with these most powerful studies that have just come out that I mentioned before from our top Canadian doctors, and showing between 3 and 9 IQ points loss. And, well, you know, that thing or that thing, they've been fighting tooth and nail to negate those studies so they can keep saying safe, effective. And so the major players like Johnson & Johnson, Colgate, Pfizer, all the huge companies based in America mostly, their take from fluoride as a whole is about $20-some billion a year. So if water fluoridation goes down, those companies are going to lose a vast amount of revenue. And they fund the dental schools, they fund the American Dental Association, they fund the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in the States, and some of that funding spills over into Canada too. So as you mentioned before, if you follow the money with these things, you follow it right back to those big players. And that's why we still have water fluoridation right now. That's why it's still safe and effective.
And it's interesting you mentioned Center for Disease Control, because they acknowledged, they did a report in August 17 of 2001, the prevalence of dental cavities in a population is not inversely related to the concentration of fluoride in the enamel, and higher concentrations of enamel fluoride is not necessarily more efficacious in preventing dental caries.
Yeah.
So their whole argument about putting fluoride in water, even fluoride in toothpaste, fluoride in anything, has always been about the fact that it prevents caries, cavities. And the Center for Disease Control has actually come out and said that that actually is not even a provable argument.
It is topically. They still have some decent literature, and there's even some of the best dentists that I know in Calgary that don't allow fluoride across their doorstep, except for maybe silver sulfadiene fluoride, the spot treat on cavities and caries. But even topically, you can make an argument that it's not that effective, but it has some potential for effect topically. Just don't swallow it. Don't take it to every cell and every organ in your body. Mm-hmm. It does no good there.
Yeah, and children under the age of 6, it's very difficult to put something in their mouth and then tell them not to swallow it, though.
Especially if you give them bubblegum flavored fluoride toothpaste and tell them not to swallow any. Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, let's make it taste as awful as possible, and then you might have a chance of that. Yeah. But, okay, so we've talked about some of the risks, and to me, I think the argument that I really want to make sure that comes across is, by putting it in the water, it's not informed consent. I have no choice if you put it in the water. And Absolutely. Let's talk about alternatives, because there's alternative ways to get fluoride. Yeah. I mean, if you want to, you can use fluoride in your toothpaste. You can take a fluoride treatment at the dentist.
Rinses, gels, foams, whatever.
Right.
Pills, if you want to take them internally, take the pills. Don't put it in everybody's water. You just go get your pills yourself. Cheap.
Yeah.
No good doctor should recommend them or prescribe them, but some still do. Okay. The point to be made there, though, is if you were to take the microphone downtown Calgary, woman on the mic, Cochrane doesn't have fluoride in the water, but take it downtown Calgary and ask 100 people what they think about fluoride. 50% of them are going to say, fluoride, what's that? 25% are going to say, oh, that's the most awful stuff in the world. It's the most toxic thing on the planet. I don't want that in my water. And 25% are going to say, well, it helps the poor kids, so yeah, I think we should do it. That's the challenge we're left with. What happens to the 50% when we have our vote and our plebiscite in October of this year, saying, do you want to re-add this awful thing into our water?
And let's talk about it, because there's a number of things to talk about there as well. One is cost. So, right now, in a time with all these budgets and expenses and deficits, and which is a true, real, honest burden that we are.
Tough economic times.
Now, downloading not only to the people today, but to future generations, when we talk about helping the poor. Fluoride, not required for any bodily function. Questionably, at best, might help children's teeth. And potentially, as the science today is saying, an extremely harmful toxic substance that does a lot of damage. With all of that, why would we, why would you take the risk? And then why would you accept the expense? Because you had mentioned $30 million, I think, for
$30.4 million over 20 years is what the consultant's report said when it came out in November of this last year. That was commissioned by the City of Calgary Council. And about 30.4 million. So in tough economic times, is that something smart to do? If it worked, maybe. If it was safe, maybe. But it's not safe and it doesn't work. The very best studies that the pro-fluoridationists can come up with are 1/2 to 1 cavity. They say 25% decrease in cavities and caries. 25% sounds pretty good. Oh, we can decrease 25. That's 1/2 to 1 cavity a lifetime in kids. We're going to whack kids' brains and thyroids and kidneys and whatever to save 1/2 to 1 cavity a lifetime.
Yeah, cavity, which we have very effective treatments for.
We have all kinds of treatments, starting from the time they are little toddlers, no sugary drinks, no Coca-Cola, no baby bottles at nighttime. You look at the pictures that some of the pro-fluoridationists show and say, look what our lack of fluoride is doing. That's baby bottle decay. It's the upper teeth that when they're in bed sucking on the bottles, they get decay in that top row, and it trashes their whole upper row of teeth. Their bottom teeth are usually not that bad. That's baby bottle decay, and it has nothing to do with fluoride, and all the water fluoridation in the world would not prevent that.
So let's switch the topic just slightly more into the political realm now, because now we have politicians that are dictating medical treatments that are really going into the water supply.
And fluoride is a medicine, as affirmed by the Supreme Court of Canada in 1957, and as affirmed by the FDA in the States, amongst others. It is a medicine.
Okay, so now we're mass medicating.
Mass medicating. Okay. Without informed consent. So when you come to me as a patient, I have to tell you what I'm going to give you, why I'm going to give it to you, and what the possible side effects and ramifications are. And then I'm going to follow you up. None of those are done with water fluoridation. It's a medication that they say take it for the rest of your life. Take as much as you want. We're never gonna inform you about it. We're not gonna follow up on you or test you ever.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting case, because if it's a medicine, I'm 120 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be more than that. And then children who are 1 year old drinking water out of a tap, who are 15, 20 pounds.
Get much higher doses and dosages.
And there becomes an issue.
So can we just clarify that slightly?
Yeah.
So the pro-fluoridation has said, way back, they said, 1.2 parts per million is safe and effective. Then they said, maybe not, maybe 1 part per million. And then like in Calgary in 1988, it's 0.8 parts per million that's safe and effective. Now it's 0.7 parts that are safe and effective. What is it? That's like a 50% decrease.
Well, we're detecting a trend, though, and it's the downward aspect of that.
But then they say, don't worry, you little people out there. We're controlling the concentration. Well, they are, but what happens if that 0.7 parts per million, if you're, say you're 100 pounds and I'm 200 pounds, if you take 10 glasses of water in a day and I take 1 in, you're getting 10 times the dose right there. 10 times the amount of fluoride in that water.
Yeah, so they're not lying when they say they're controlling the concentration, but what they can't control is the volume
dosage
of
medicine.
Exactly.
So dose is the amount that's in that. Right? It's in this glass of water.
I can say acetaminophen is, it's only 200 milligrams, and that's perfectly safe for you. But if I take the whole bottle...
Yes, that's not good for you.
It's not good for me.
And so dose then is you're taking 10 times as much if you're drinking 10 times as much water as I am sitting in my desk and drinking just 1 glass a day. But then you're half the weight as me. So your amount of medicine per kilogram of weight, which is dosage, is again doubled. So you're getting 20 times the dosage that I am.
Yes.
If you're taking 10 glasses and I'm taking 1 and you're half the weight as me, you're getting 20 times the dosage. And as you said, it goes down from adults to children to infants to babies to placental. It crosses the placental barrier. So before the child is even born, that child is getting a dose of fluoride that's way beyond his or her toxic level.
And fluoride has been linked to actually some issues around pregnant women.
Absolutely. Those good Canadian studies that are coming out since 2017, they're some of the best studies that have been done ever. Are they perfect? There's not a perfect study on the planet. But are they better than? Are they way better than most others? Way better. The quality of the science is excellent, to the point that JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, which is one of the top 3 medical journals on the planet, published these studies. And those editors went through it upside and down, these studies. They vetted them, triple vetted them, and they knew they were going to get a lot of flack from the pro-fluoridation lobbies and all the money that's out there. But they were ready. And there's some really good podcasts and information from the JAMA folks on that. The editor of the JAMA Pediatrics said, if my wife was pregnant, after reading these studies, he was shocked to see what he saw. He said, if my wife was pregnant, I'd tell her not to drink fluoridated water. Mm-hmm. This is one of the top doctors in America, publishing one of the top journals in the world.
Yeah, so not conspiracy theorists, not people who were anti anything, because to me that seems to be what people do today is in order to shut the conversation down, they just simply throw out names and discredit the individuals doing it.
Pejorative language, put down, censorships.
Right, and because you're not, for fluoride in the water, doesn't necessarily mean, like you said, that there's dentists out there that, don't use spot treatments or, there's some value. Yeah. But, coming back, so there was a study that was done, a survey.
Good point. 2016.
Yeah, well, there was one that was done, American Dental Association. And this one was done, talking about water in fluoride, putting fluoride in community water. And the American Dental Association just unreservedly came out and said, dentists support this. Mm-hmm. And yet, when the wealthy dentist did their own survey, and it's a marketing website for dental practices, they conducted their own survey with one question: do you support water fluoridation? Here's the results they came back with. 70% said no.
Where was this?
This was, I'll leave it with you. So this was 70% said no, counting only the responses from dentists only. A clear majority, 56%, still said no. So here you have the American Dental Association, who unreservedly endorses this, says absolutely, unequivocally, dentists support this, and since they adopted it in like the 1950s, but yet 56% of dentists, when asked independently, do not endorse this. And when they were asked why, fluoride belongs in toothpaste, not water, was one of the comments. Those who want it can have it.
Choice.
And fluoride is only effective topically, not systematically. So again, put it on the teeth, but to ingest it, there's no proven benefit. Fluoride should not be added to the water supply as it affects individuals, cannot be monitored, and dose cannot be controlled. We've already talked about those.
Thank you.
And then they said there's alternatives. People can choose fluoride treatments in a multitude of different ways if they should choose to do so. And then one person classified it, not one person, but it was classified as a toxic waste. And this should be self-explanatory. So, when you look at how is it, because I know even with the College of Physicians and Surgeons, for example, they make statements that blanket everybody who they regulate through licensing and registration. The Dental Association unreservedly is making a statement on all dentists.
Even more so.
And yet, the evidence when independent research and independent surveys are put into this, that's not always what's happening. So, I think this is a bit of a political game.
It's way more than a bit. It's a lot of a political game. Are you aware that I've been taken to the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta to try to take my license away and marginalize and silence me for the last 2 years plus?
And why would they do that?
To get me out of the way, because they say Dr. Dickson is responsible for keeping this wonderful, safe, and effective treatment away from 1.2 million Calgarians. I wish I was that powerful, but anyway, that's their premise, and so they're trying to take my license away to silence my voice.
So why is it that, I thought the whole purpose of science was to create...
debate.
Yeah.
Communication.
Let's take a look at all the evidence, and we've got a significant amount of evidence that is indeed, mounting to prove that fluoride is just not effective in water at all, and yet it's harmful. But yet you're being threatened with your license. And I don't want to bring up COVID today, but having been so actively involved with COVID and what's been going on, I happen to know personally so many doctors, very credible, who have wanted to speak out but are being silenced again by these regulatory bodies that oversee their licensing bodies. Or
just refuse to speak out because they know what could happen to them.
Yeah.
The Alberta Dental Association is very heavy-handed. And one of my colleagues, dental colleagues, he was threatened about 5 years ago that if he spoke out a single word in a 3-year period on water fluoridation or mercury amalgams, they would take his license to practice away. His multi-$100,000 whatever practice would be gone if he spoke one single word in the public or to the press. And so does that ripple effect go through the dental society, the dental folks out there? Absolutely. Within a day or two, that's through the whole system, and people won't speak out because, a young dentist, a 30, 40-year-old dentist has just come out and has all kinds of debts and, practiced in the family, and are they going to speak out and risk losing their license? No. Doctors maybe not quite as bad a shape as that, but there is some very heavy-handed politics going on there as well with Alberta Health and the College of Physicians and Surgeons.
And let's be clear that 98% of British Columbia, 98% of Quebec, 97% of Europe, and 95% of the world does not fluoridate.
And that is... Calgarians for Kids Health, the organization that's promoting water fluoridation in Calgary, they always say, Calgary is such a backwoods place. We stopped fluoridation 10 years ago. Kids' teeth are falling out of their heads. Cavities are going up and up. Well, they are going up, but so is Edmonton that's been fluoridated since 1967. But they make it look like we're the outliers here. We're not. We're in the vast majority of places in the world that don't fluoridate. Fluoridation, water fluoridation, is one of the most rejected practices on the planet.
Wow.
Just one
so
point
who's moving backwards then if Calgary is going to go back to fluoridate?
We're definitely moving in a regressive way.
Yeah.
One thing they just might mention is just mass medicating. If you came to me as a patient and I give you 100 pills and I said, Nadine, go home and take one of them and throw the rest in the Bow River, 99% of them in the Bow River, you'd go, what? Well, that's what we're doing with water fluoridation, because 99% is not consumed. So if you're medicating through the water with anything, if you want to put Prozac or cholesterol meds or whatever, aspirin in the water, 99% doesn't get to the people. That's the most ineffective way of delivering a medicine ever, even if it did work. Mm-hmm. This doesn't work, and yet 99% or more goes out into our environment unchecked. And it does nasty things to the little fishies in the other aquatic environments, except that they've learned they have fluoride exporting proteins. So they've learned, ooh, this is toxic stuff coming in. We better figure a way to get this out of our bodies. So they've developed over time fluoride exporting proteins. We are not smart enough yet or evolved enough yet as humans to develop those. So we just have to not do fluoride.
So on the fluoride debate, then we have issues around the ethics of mass medication. We have issues around the safety as far as harm to children, adults. There's a tremendous amount of science showing now ADHD, autism, all sorts of links to all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And then we also have efficacy, because their number one argument is the dental practice and teeth.
25%.
And I have to take a look at this from a standpoint of, let's assess the risks. So if I can potentially avoid half a cavity over my lifetime, or expose myself to all the harms that fluoride can do, including cancer and heart disease, diabetes. I mean, there's so many links to so many different illnesses. Is it really worth it? And yet we're actually now being told, well, you're not going to get a choice in the matter. You are going to take it and like it, because we're putting it in the water.
Well, no, you're going to get a vote. If you live in Calgary, you'd get to vote whether I got medicated. And I get to vote whether you get medicated or not. What a wonderful way to do medicine. But
not only that, though, but that would be fine, I think, if we were actually informed and given the actual data on both sides. But what they do is they, as Bernays is the expert in, spin the data and make this wonderful propaganda campaign, so that way the information you're getting is one-sided and you're not getting both sides. I mean, I'm a firm believer in anybody who is honestly being presented with both sides should be allowed to make whatever informed decision they choose.
And you'd be willing to bet they're not going to fluoridate. If they have the informed decision.
If they had an informed decision.
I still stand behind my statement that says if I had 10% of the money, if Safe Water Calgary had 10% of the money that the pro-fluoridationists have to promote this, we would win that plebiscite in October by 70%, 70 to 30. It'd just be a landslide. We'd knock them out of the water, so to speak.
Okay, so there was 2 books that we want to make sure that if you are interested in learning more about the debate around fluoride, Dr. Jim Beck, and that's The Case Against Fluoride.
Published in 2010, along with Dr. Paul Connett, a PhD chemist from the States, who's head of the Fluoride Action Network, and Dr. Mecklem is a PhD out of England. So the 3 of them co-authored The Case Against Fluoride in 2010. So hopefully you can show your viewers a shot of that book. Excellent book.
Perfect.
Most facts and figures you'll ever find in any fluoride textbook.
Wonderful. And then there is The Fluoride Deception by Christopher Bryson.
Excellent book. Read that one first. Read The Fluoride Deception first, and then buy or read The Case Against Fluoride after, with all the facts and figures.
And for those of you who, don't necessarily want to go through the amount of research and pages, 400 on this one, and I'm sure the other one is the same.
But this one reads like a spy novel. You can read that in a few days because it's so exciting and fun to read.
It is fun. It is. Like I said,
Scary.
Well... The truth usually is, yes. Especially today. But then there is the Safe Water Calgary, which is your website. Which
I founded Safe Water Calgary in 2017 in response to the last civic election we had, and in response to Calgarians for Kids Health putting out some very bad misinformation. So safewatercalgary.com, and there's a /action. If you want to take action there as a volunteer, please come and help us. We're going to need, over the next 6 months, a lot of people to help us with this. So that's where you'll find it, safewatercalgary.com /action. And we have got lots and lots of scientific studies on there. The first thing to do, if you don't know much about it or want to tell your friends more about it and educate them, have them go on our website. The very first thing you'll see on the homepage, there's just 4 tabs. The first one is Fluoride 101. It's an excellent video done by a very informed dentist out of Portland, and he just debunks all the modern day myths. He is so good, so calm. He's very cool, a lot cooler than I am. He doesn't get as excited as I do. He goes, no, actually that one's totally wrong. And here's why, and here's the facts. So 12 minutes long, everybody can afford a 12-minute video, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, what's really interesting is this book actually talks about how hard it is to debunk a myth once it has been
Once it's ingrained, that cognitive dissonance is so
they know
strong.
this. See, these experts, these Edward Bernays, they know how to manipulate the system and play the game, right?
Ever. The modern day ones, since he has passed, they all read his book and incorporate all his practices.
Fantastic. Well, 2 minutes. What would you like to say to the people out there?
2 minutes? I've spent 22 years doing this.
Well, sum it up in 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, the number one thing, of course, is the neurotoxicity. The NTP, the National Toxicology Program in the States, has affirmed that it's a proven neurotoxin, especially for kids. And that's as high as they can go in the neurotoxic list. The other thing I'd like to say with that, the three most toxic things out there, three of the most toxic things on our planet are lead and fluoride and arsenic. And if you look at the toxicity scale, go right to the top, those three are at the top. So lead is slightly less toxic than fluoride. Fluoride is slightly less toxic than arsenic. So any of one of those should be long gone. Two of them are. Fluoride is still very much here. Get it out of our water, folks. It's not needed for a single body function. Don't let anyone tell you that it is. It hardens teeth somewhat. Do we want hard teeth? Not necessarily, especially as we get older, because hard teeth are just like bones. They're more brittle. They'll snap. They'll break. We don't need them. The best state in the States to live, as far as fluoridation, is Hawaii. They have the best dental health and they're the lowest fluoridated. The worst state to live is Kentucky, which is the highest fluoridated at about 99%, and they have the worst dental health, especially in their seniors and elders. So do not go there. Vote no in the plebiscite. Educate your neighbors and friends. Get people out there to vote, because half the people in the population don't know about water fluoridation. They don't know anything about fluoride. But I'll tell you what, if they read Dr. Bob's top 10 reasons not to fluoridate, and they go on our website, this pamphlet here is on our website as well, safewatercalgary.com, you'll have all the science, all the information that you need. Any one of these top 10 points should stop water fluoridation on its own. Any one of these should stop it. All 10 together, gone. We're not going to poison our people, and especially our kids.
So there you have it. Fluoride. Get informed. Make sure you're making an informed decision. Please check out Dr. Bob's website and Calgary Safe Water, and make sure that you are actively involved. And there is a vote coming up in October of this year. So I guess we don't tell people what to do here, but it looks like it should be a pretty obvious vote.
Pretty
no.
Cut and dried. Fluoridation. Don't swallow it.
Don't swallow it. So thank you so much for watching. Should you have any questions or concerns, you want to get involved, please go to Safe Water Calgary. Get involved there. There's some tabs where you can volunteer, you can get involved, participate, you can donate. I think you can even help with the distribution of flyers and all these things.
Absolutely. We can use some volunteers in the next 6 months if you want a real short-term job that doesn't pay a whole lot, but is very effective and helpful for society and helpful for health of everybody. Come volunteer with us and hand out pamphlets and leaflets and posters. Yeah,
so again, if you like this video, please share, please like, hit the notification if you'd like to receive future videos. Thank you, Dr. Bob, for being with us today and sharing.
Thank you for your knowledge, too. I'm quite shocked you know more than 95% of the doctors out there and the dentists know.
I like to know what I'm talking about.
Thank you for doing that.
And of course, having an alternative health diploma doesn't hurt. This is definitely something that I had researched. Although I have to admit, I thought that it was pretty much a done deal. I thought that the debate around fluoride in water, was kind of done, because in 2011, I guess we did get rid of water, the fluoride in Calgary water. Yeah. To see this resurrected again, to me, just begs the question, why?
Just one quick point I'd like to make. The bogus 2016 study that came out of University of Calgary, comparing Calgary's kids' teeth to Edmonton's kids' teeth, to this day, they still say that Calgary's kids' teeth are a lot worse than Edmonton's. They're exactly the same at the end of the study, folks. Ending water fluoridation for the last 3 years of the study made zero difference. So Edmonton's kids' teeth that are fluoridated all the time, Calgary's kids' teeth that haven't been for 10 years, they're exactly at the same rate. They're all increasing. because of the sugary drinks and the poor diets and lack of dental care, etc.
Like anything, if we allow our natural immunity and we actually work in balance with nature and eat healthy foods and avoid the sugars, the carbs.
Scottish Child Smile Program, look up that program. No fluoridation in Scotland, and they have the best teeth in the world.
That's probably, it's interesting that the Scots have the best teeth in the world.
Best kids' teeth.
Best kids' teeth.
It's slowly starting to permeate into the teens and the adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, haggis is good for something.
Not overeating. Yeah.
Wonderful. So again, if you like the video, please do share. Please do hit the like button, notification, and thanks for watching. It's Nadine Willwood. Enjoy your day.
Gracias.